What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Where you are watching 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy as we tackle all the latest and greatest happening in the world of sports and pop culture, and we have a lot to get to on this show. So we will talk about Jalen Brunson, who did a pretty long form article with a sit down with Vanity Fair, where they did a bunch of stuff about his life and just his career with the New York Knicks. But one catching the eyes of many is what's going to happen with his Knicks future, because he is a player that will be eligible for a Supermax contract. And he let it be known that he took account of the fact that he took less money to remain with the Knicks and to keep the Knicks under the second apron, and that he says he is, quote, looking to be taken care of. So the question becomes, will the Knicks actually take care of Jalen Brunson in that way, in terms of maybe offering him a Supermax contract on this next deal that he has coming up? So we'll talk about Jalen Brunson's article and sit down with Vanity Fair. We'll also talk about Chris Paul, who is seems to be set to open up and drop all the tea about what went down with the Los Angeles Clippers. Chris Paul unceremoniously had to retire last week after being waived by the Toronto Raptors, and with no realistic suitors, it seemed like, for his services moving forward, Chris Paul decided to hang it up. And he's now on the podcast tour. He stopped by 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, which is Carmelo Anthony and Kazim Famuyide's podcast for Wave Entertainment. And they talked about some of his Clipper exit. Now, the episode, I don't believe, is out yet. At least it's not out on YouTube. But they dropped a snippet. And we're already starting to see that this is not going to be some clean exit. And I don't think anybody expected it when it came to the Clippers. I don't think anybody really expected it when it came from Chris Paul's perspective in terms of knowing how he is. So we're going to hear a lot more about this. I think this is only the beginning of that. We'll also talk about the WNBA and its CBA negotiations. A counter-proposal was offered by the Players Union. It doesn't seem to be taken very well by the actual league, so I don't think we're any close to a resolution for the WNBA and that labor dispute that's going on right now. And I think a lockout could be coming for that league. And then finally, I thought I'd seen a lot. I thought I'd seen it all when it comes to sports. But I saw yesterday something that I had never seen before. And we tried to get answers from the party that made the decision to do what they did. I don't know if the answers really made all that much sense. So we're going to try to make sense of it today on 40 Days and 40 Nights. Day 28 coming at you right now. Again, streaming live, multiple spots, including streaming live on YouTube, New Generation Media, streaming live on X, EJ_Stewart, and streaming live on Instagram, Action EJ. Shout out to the folks watching me on all platforms again, wherever you're watching. Whether you're watching me on social media, EJ_Stewart on X, or Instagram, Action EJ, make sure you subscribe and follow your boy on both accounts. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, New Generation Media. Give us a like in the like section. Give us a comment in the comment section. All engagement is good engagement, and we appreciate you. So if you want to support this show, we want to continue to support this show, be sure to give us a like in the likes button section and give us, of course, a lovely comment if you can. We greatly appreciate that. All episodes are podcasted to our podcast channel. So if you want to listen to this on an audio version because maybe you're on the go and you can't watch, totally fine and totally possible. You can go back to these episodes, not just today, but all the episodes that we put up 40 Days and 40 Nights on our podcast channel. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts, and you'll get not just every episode of 40 Days and 40 Nights, including both day 27 and night 27 from yesterday, but all the episodes that we produce here at New Generation Media. All right, so let's get the ball rolling, man. Let's talk about Jalen Brunson. So, Knicks are in the All-Star break right now, and they are primed for what is going to be a crucial second half of the season where they're in a very competitive Eastern Conference. They are certainly, if not the best, one of the best teams in this league, and one of the teams that I think people expect to potentially be coming out of this conference to be playing for an NBA championship. And if they're going to do that, it's going to be through the exploits of their superstar point guard, Jalen Brunson, who sat down with Vanity Fair in the fall and spoke pretty extensively about all different kind of topics. They want to kind of do kind of just an overall view, just where he's at in his career and his life as a New York star. He's definitely come into his own when it comes to that aspect of his career. And the one comment and quote that's really picking up steam is what's going to happen with this next contract. So Jalen Brunson, if you'll remember, he had an opportunity to sign a Supermax extension during the last time when his contract was coming up. But instead, he took less money and signed a 4-year, $195 million contract. And what that did was it allowed the Knicks ample flexibility to remain under the tax apron. So if you guys don't know what this means, there are two aprons that are super important. There's a first apron and second apron. The second apron is very punitive and is essentially a hard tax. If you go above a certain number when it comes to team salary, you start to have certain elements to your team that you're not able to actually function as a full organization. So you won't be able to trade draft picks. You won't be able to do signing trades. You won't be able to sign guys on the buyout market. There are all these different things that hurt teams if you go over a second apron, because the goal was to limit team spending. This was essentially the Golden State Warrior rule. Golden State Warriors took advantage of a situation with Kevin Durant where the salary cap number exploded to a number that nobody expected after the TV deal, and it allowed them a max slot to sign Kevin Durant. And even though the salaries, it always balances out in the end, and the salaries end up balancing out, and the salary cap number got to a normal number based on current NBA salaries, they still, because they had the bird rights of all these star players, were able to re-sign guys as long as they were willing to go over the luxury tax. It wasn't just them, the Clippers as well, who did not have any of the championships or success that the Warriors enjoyed, but still, nonetheless, had no problem going well above the tax to re-sign Kawhi Leonard, re-sign Paul George, to re-sign a lot of these guys to max contracts without really any concern about luxury tax, because in the previous CBA, all there was a luxury tax, and if you went over it, you had to pay X amount of money on top of the money you were spending on your team's salary in order to run your team, right? Teams didn't care about that. At least certain owners did. Like James Dolan didn't, Ballmer didn't, Joe Lacob didn't. So this, in many ways, again, became kind of like a Golden State Warriors rule, where it's like, hey, listen, you have all these stars, but you can't just sign them to whatever you want and go super over the luxury tax, because that's not actually managing a budget. Like, there is no budget for a team like that, because there's no penalty to re-signing your own guys. Now, the argument is, well, you can't then go and sign other guys in free agency, but as we've seen, and what I think the Warriors were ahead of the curve on, was free agency essentially was dying after that summer. There really hasn't been free agency in the way we remember it, where all these teams had all this cap room and they were just waiting for stars to come available so they could sign these guys. That's just not how it works anymore. So the NBA put in the second apron to try to, I think, limit those kind of super teams from happening and be able to be sustainable and sustained. That's why the Oklahoma City Thunder were reportedly at least exploring the possibility of trading someone like Isaiah Hartenstein, because they're about to be paying three guys max contracts in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. So so that's why the rules are in place. So Jalen Brunson taking less money than he could have got was a huge win for the New York Knicks, because that allowed them to re-sign OG Anunoby to a $40 million per year number and not feel like they were going to be in trouble. They were able to bring in Karl-Anthony Towns, who had a massive extension that was about to kick in when they brought him in. They were able to re-sign just now Mikal Bridges to a long-term contract. So all these guys have been able to get locked in. It's allowing the Knicks to keep this core of players together while not having the punitive penalties of a second apron tax, where they're having picks frozen and inabilities to improve the roster via minimum salaries, mid-level exceptions, and all those different things. But Jalen Brunson doing that move was lauded, and I think Knicks fans still are like, man, it's crazy that one of the best players in the NBA you have essentially on a bargain. He's making a lot of money. It's a lot of money for anybody, but in the NBA terms, given how good he is definitely taking less money than he probably is worth. So Jalen Brunson was speaking to Vanity Fair, and he made it very clear that he is in full understanding that he did take less money. And as he looked at it, it was a practical decision in terms of just how he views his game, plus a decision that he hopes will be paid off in the end. Here's what Jalen Brunson said to Vanity Fair as I pull up this quote here. I know it's a little small, but I'll try to read it for you here. So he said, there were clear reasons he took the bag, as he puts it. Waiting for the bigger contract carried risks with an injury potentially jeopardizing the payday. I've seen players wait and then get hurt, and then they're at the mercy of the organization, he says. Brunson, ever the pragmatist, preferred not to take that chance. If I'm thinking about playing well to make sure I get paid, that could mess with me. I play best when I have a free mind. That did that for me. A lot of people say I sacrificed for the team. 100% I sacrificed for the team. But most importantly, I made sure my family and I are taken care of. Brunson's $113 million discount provided the Knicks with precious cap flexibility, but come 2028, he'll be eligible for a 5-year, $417 million contract. He'll be 32 entering that season, an age when smaller guards often showed signs of decline, but Brunson is hopeful the Knicks will reward his team-friendly extension. Obviously, we'd love for them to do right by me, Brunson said. I think anyone would. I feel like I sacrificed. This is going to get a little interesting, I'll be honest, because the article writes something that is accurate and fair, that 32 is typically the last years of your prime, or maybe the last year of your prime. Most of the time, a player's prime is essentially between ages of 27 and 32, 31. So if you're talking about a guy who at that point in time will be entering the aging years of his career, to be paying him 5 years, $417 million contracts, that's a massive deal that will see him making, $70, $80 million by the time that contract comes to its final years. That's a massive number. I think there are a couple things about this, though. I think if you're the Knicks, you got to play chess, not checkers. I would assume that the second apron is going to go bye-bye in the next CBA. The players seem to hate it. I think fans seem to hate it. I don't think it's done what I think people thought it was going to do. Like, I think people thought, oh, this is going to be a good way to, again, keep super teams from re-signing star players that they bring in and not having any penalty for it. But then what we're seeing is, oh, wait, the Thunder should be allowed to keep someone like Isaiah Hartenstein, even if they have to pay Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet, and Jalen Williams. Like, that shouldn't be a penalty that they have to pay, right? Like, I think it's just the app. I defended the second apron when they put it in. A lot of people didn't like it. I defended it. I think the application of it, the idea of it made sense. I think the application of it, we realized. And the actual exercise of actually running a league with this, we've seen other issues that I didn't foresee. I think maybe the league didn't foresee. So I think there's a likelihood that by the time Jalen Brunson is actually having his contract kick in, which is 2028, I think that we won't have a second apron. I'd like to see when the NBA CBA expires. But I think that date is coming up. So 2029, 2030. So you have that contract on your books for the first 2 seasons of a league that has a second apron. I don't think that after the 2030 season you'll have that. So the Knicks could say, okay, listen, we don't think that there will be a CBA at this point with a second apron, and we want to take care of our guy, and Dolan would have to just pay a luxury tax that I don't think he'd have a problem paying. So what's the harm in doing this? They can totally do that. I do kind of think Jalen Brunson, if he's looking for the 5-year, $417 million, thinking that the Knicks will quote unquote just do right by him, I think there's a little bit of naivety to that, to be honest. I think there's a little bit of Jalen Brunson needing to maybe learn from one young Malachi Tony of the Miami Hurricanes, Gabos. Game ain't based on sympathy. And I am not 100% sure, to be quite honest, if the Knicks are going to say, hey, we'll just totally hand you $400 million. Unless, there's always an if, he wins a championship. Jalen Brunson can lead the Knicks to a title in these next few years, which I don't think is a preposterous situation that could happen. That is a scenario where maybe the Knicks say, here is the thank you money for your sacrifices and being the savior. He would have then been confirmed to have been the savior of the New York Knicks and brought back a championship for the first time since 1973. If he does that, I think that most Knicks fans would not care how much money they pay Jalen Brunson. They say give him everything that he's worth and give him more. Because at that point in time, he would have done what we all been asking for, which is to finally hoist another banner at the Garden for an NBA championship. Because that's the goal. And we'll talk about the win now mode stuff that he says he's definitely feeling for the Knicks right now. But that, I think, is where this lies. If he wants that $400 million, if he really wants that, which obviously he does, the way to get there is to win the NBA championship. Which I think he knows, but when you do the I sacrificed and I hope they do right by me because I took less money thing, that's the part of it where you run into some, again, this is the NBA, this is a business, and you're a 32-year-old undersized point guard thinking that you're going to get paid essentially to become the highest paid guy in the NBA. You better be, I don't know. I just think that there's a likelihood that the Knicks will make that a true negotiation. I don't think it's going to be, here you go, here's just $417 million. Without a championship? With a championship, they might do it. With a championship, I definitely think they could do it. I think without one, that seems unclear to me. But James Dolan is the wild card in all of this because he's a wild card, period. So I don't know what he thinks. He could be offended by this. He could think that how dare you tell me how to run my business and that I owe you something because of a decision that you made. I totally see him saying that. I totally see him saying, hey, you've been a great employee. You've done everything we've asked. You've been a great ambassador for the Knicks organization, for Madison Square Garden, and I love you for life. Here's $400 million. He could totally do that too, because he is very loyal. Like if you show love to him, if you do what he asks and you embrace him, he's gonna do right by you. Ask Isaiah Thomas, who he didn't want to fire, who he kept wanting to bring back to the Garden. Ask Steve Mills. Ask all the people that are still at the Garden, right? Ask Allen Houston, who still keeps the job, even though there have been multiple changes now to the front office. Like he's a loyal guy. So I could also see it going that way too. I think it can go a multitude of ways, but Jalen Brunson thinking that, hey, I've done right by this team, so therefore I should get $417 million. Just with the way the NBA works, I'm not sure that that's going to automatically happen. The Knicks could look at it and say there won't be a second apron. If they feel good about that, maybe they'll be more willing to take that risk. But unless he wins a championship, I don't think it's going to be so straightforward that Jalen Brunson simply gets a supermax, even if he should have got one in his prime. He would have been well worth a supermax contract the last time he was up for a contract extension. But where the Knicks were, they weren't quite there yet in terms of solidifying themselves as a championship contender. So he did what all the greats do. He did what the Derek Jeters and Tom Brady's do, which is I'll take a little bit less money to stay in New York or stay in New England, Tom Brady's case, in order to make sure I have the pieces around me to win a title. The difference was those guys won a title. So now it's up to Jalen Brunson to actually get that money and get paid. And the best way to do that is to actually ensure that you do win a title. Because I think then the Knicks may be more willing to on the back end say, okay, here's the bag, so to speak, and here's everything. Here's thanks for everything you've done and your contributions. This is essentially a lifetime achievement award type money that you'd be getting. The other aspect about the Knicks, and this goes back to what I was talking about when it comes to the importance of actually finishing the job and winning a championship, is Jalen Brunson understands that this team is in win now mode, and he's not shying away from that. This was what he said as well in this article with Vanity Fair. He said, we're definitely in win now mode. Our front office has put a lot into this organization, and it's our team. They're basically saying it's win now mode, so we got to do our best to win now. These are such Jalen Brunson quotes. Like, what I love about this article is it's so again, it's very Jalen Brunson. Like even in the article where it's Vanity Fair, it's a little laid back. They want to talk to you for a long time. This is not going to be a little like press gaggle and then we move on. Like he's still giving you like the most like what's the most Derek Jeter answer way to put this? So even when he has to make a declaration that it is indeed win now mode, he kind of doesn't want to go beyond anything other than saying, yeah, it's win now mode, so we got to win now. He's not going to put, we got to win a championship. He's not going to say anything crazy because he's just smart, right? He's doing this for a while. And I know his dad and him have both talked about how they've modeled his leadership style and his face of the franchise approach with what Derek Jeter did with the Yankees. So I felt very Derek Jeter, to be honest. This give them an answer that looks like it's something, but in reality is kind of nothing. But no, he definitely knows that the Knicks are in a win now mode, and that's undeniable at this point in time. I wonder in terms of what the Knicks see in terms of the front office, because you mentioned the front office there. Do radical changes happen to the team if they don't win a championship this year? Because that's at the end of the day, I think the biggest question when it comes to that answer is they're telling the players that this is a win now mode. He's saying that they've shown that they're in a win now situation. But what happens if you don't? It's a reality of sports that only one team can win. And what satisfies a quote unquote good season that allows you to run it back? Does making the finals mean that everyone keeps their job and they run it back? Do you have to win games in the finals for everybody to keep their job and run it back? Or do you have to actually win it all? I want to say everybody keeps their job. I'm talking about mostly the players. Like, do you see big trades potentially if the Knicks decide, hey, we got close, but this unit is hitting a glass ceiling, and we don't think they have enough to get it done and get over the top? Do trades come then? Like, does Giannis become more on the table? Does other folks come more on the table? That'll be the question I'll have moving forward with the Knicks in terms of whether or not, if this is a win now mode, what are the consequences for not winning now? I think most people would feel like if they fall short of an NBA Finals appearance, it would make radical changes a lot more on the table for sure. But what if they get to the finals and lose in 5 games? Or what if they lose a heartbreaker like the Pacers did last year? Are you still trading Cat? Are you still trading Bridges? Like what is actually on the table for the Knicks as far as change is concerned? When it comes to radical change for the Knicks, if they do indeed not come up short. All interesting questions. Shout out to Vanity Fair for getting this long sit down with Jalen Brunson. Super cool that he did this. It's good. It's fun to see him have that glow up. It's funny to see, like, whenever you see like a athlete or a rapper or some other like entertainer who isn't typically in like the Vanity Fair, GQ kind of landscape typically, when they then have to go and do something for one of those places, it's kind of funny to see those, how they dress, how they look. They look like this Jalen Brunson. Let's see if I can actually pull it up. This Jalen Brunson like artistic picture that they tried to put together. He's holding a basketball, and I'm gonna see if I can show you guys. If this will. Oh, hold on, I gotta move this down. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Oh, it's coming up soon. We'll try it one more time. Okay, let's try it again. You should be able to see it, I think, this time. Okay, maybe not. Oh, there you go. So you see, he's got this he's just sitting in this hotel bed with the gold, finishings, and he's laid out. I always find those kind of things funny. Here he is, I don't know if this is in Vegas, so this actually I assume this might have been during the. It might have been during the what's name? It might have been during the Cup. They said they did it during the fall, which the Cup was in the fall because it was December. It was early December, which technically is still fall. I know people always think that it's December, it's winter. It's not yet. So I guess I assume this was during that's definitely Las Vegas. So he's in some Las Vegas hotel, and again they're doing these artistic pictures. I just always find these articles funny. And that's obviously a lot more of a normal picture of Jalen Brunson. But yeah, this is obviously at the Cup because there he is playing in the semifinal game against the Orlando Magic. So yeah, I mean, I'm for one hopeful that when the Knicks get to the postseason, they'll be up for the challenge. I talked to Dex Henry a couple of days ago, and he also agreed that the Knicks right now are the best team. I've been saying that. I expect the Knicks to get to the NBA Finals. I wish they would look a little more dominant than they have, but I'm trying to also really withhold judgment. Because the thing about Knicks fans is we're unlike casual NBA fans, which is why it's hard to talk to casual NBA fans sometimes, because we live and die with every regular season game, and we believe what we see in the regular season is an indicator of what will happen in the playoffs, and we want to win every regular season game because that's just how New Yorkers are wired. So I think there are some people who actually are non-Knicks fans who are a lot more sure that the Knicks are the best team in the Eastern Conference, even though they've not really shown it in any matchup against the Detroit Pistons. They've been absolutely destroyed in every game they played against the Pistons, and the Pistons right now are the number 1 seed. And for Knicks fans, it gives them anxiety because it's like, yo, like what we do, like this is the top team, and we look like we can't compete with them. Even though we went through the same song and dance last year with the Boston Celtics, where you had the best team in the Eastern Conference and the team that had obviously the reigning NBA championship banner hanging up in their rafters, and the Knicks could not beat them in the regular season, and of course they handled them in the playoffs, and they couldn't beat any good team, as Dexter Henry mentioned in the regular season last year, and they handled their business. So the ebbs and flows of the Knicks season, I think, has maybe given Knicks fans more anxiety than even actual casual basketball observers, who I think there'll always be some who are going to be detractors. Like I mentioned Vets Goodwill a couple of weeks ago, or actually I don't know if I talked about it on the show. I definitely talked about it on WFAN. By the way, I'll be on the Fan later tonight. I'll be on the Fan, WFAN New York. So if you have the Odyssey app, if you're not in New York City, you can catch me on WFAN live. So this will be tomorrow, I guess technically, will be a 3-show day, because I will be on WFAN from midnight to 5 a.m. And then as things stand right now, unless I change my mind or do something else, I'm still planning to do an 8 a.m. show here on 40 Days and 40 Nights on New Generation Media at some point tomorrow. I assume that show will probably be shorter. I don't think I'll be doing a whole 2 hours. Today's show might be a little shorter as well. Not necessarily because of the show tonight, just because there's not as much happening right now. This is, again, the dead period when it comes to sports. But no, I'll be doing essentially 3 shows tomorrow. So you'll have me on WFAN from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. So if you're getting up early or you're working overnight, you want to hear your boy EJ talking on the Fan, I'll probably be talking more about this article from Jalen Brunson. We'll probably get into some Jet stuff and Giant stuff as we get closer to the NFL draft. We'll have a fun time on WFAN. That'll be later tonight / tomorrow morning. So we'll talk more about this. But yeah, this is a situation that is going to be one to follow. And a storyline that I think is going to be a big one if the Knicks don't win a championship. If they do, I think he probably just gets rewarded with a massive contract extension and we just move on with our day. And then we can talk about the ramifications of what that means. Like, that means some guys on this team will be gone. There's just no denying it. You can't afford to have a Jalen Brunson contract that massive and keep your team functioning because just of the way the rules work, at least for a certain amount of time. Maybe they'll be okay with being over the apron for a year or two. Like, there's that possibility. But then you're playing with fire, not knowing if, again, there's a chance that they could keep it. Like, they could very well go into CBA negotiations in 2030 and say, hey, we like second apron. We think it's keeping contracts under control, so we're not getting rid of it. And maybe there's a lockout. Maybe there's a situation. Who knows? I'm not wishing that. It's just these are the conversations we're going to have, just like we're going to have in a couple minutes with the WNBA about what things, how that's shaking out. So next season's going to get kicked off really soon. These nights, like, it's funny how people complain about the NBA season and stuff, but these nights when there's no NBA ball, college has been doing this thing. You had a big matchup last night, Michigan beating Purdue. Purdue's had trouble beating the top teams in the country this year, and the top teams in their conference, the Big Ten. Starting to wonder if they're starting to look a little fugazi as a true championship contender. College basketball has been holding their own as much as they can. They had, again, a great matchup Monday night between Houston and Iowa State. More Hilltop Magic, but I still think we look at these nights without the NBA, it kind of feels a little naked. It's like, oof. Just feel different. Like, even not getting highlights in your Twitter feed or on your social media feed, even if you're not actually watching the games, I feel like for me at least, there's a level of comfortability when there are NBA games on. I know I may see something exciting, even if I'm not watching live. When you lose that, and we have these little days off, it's like, waiting for this moment to get it going where we got some NBA action. And Thursday night, man, a big game for the Knicks. Detroit comes to the Garden. This is a very important stretch for the Knicks. Good doubleheader too. You got the Celtics and Warriors after that. But this is an important stretch for the Knicks because they ended the season with pretty strong, or second half of the season, pretty strong. And when you think about where the schedule was, a lot of folks felt like this was going to be a very telling sign of where the Knicks are as a team in this stretch of games. I'll pull up their schedule in a second as I'm pulling it up right now. But as things stand, with the Knicks, who have been playing really good basketball, they've been 2-4 in their last. They're 2-2 in their last 4 games. But let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they won 10 of their last 12 though overall. So they've again overall been trending in the right direction. They've had a couple of tough games in here that they've been able to win and win handily. They blew out the Celtics on the road. They blew out the Sixers on the road. More tough games coming up. And now let me show you if I can pull up this Knicks schedule so you can see how the second half gets started, because it is a little brutal. I'll be honest, it's not easy. Let's see if I can try this one more time. There you go. So second half of the season begins, and you got Detroit. That's going to be Thursday night. Then a Saturday night game at home against the Rockets. So Kevin Durant and still hasn't tweeted yet, by the way. Let's see. Let's do a. Cause I wanted to talk about that yesterday. I actually realized I lost my train of thought yesterday and forgot to mention this. But this Kevin Durant we talked about yesterday had this burner account scandal, and now there's people who have actually separated the tweets and quotes into what they call a KD files, kind of like what they said with the Epstein files. They're trying to make it like that. So now they have people who have actually organized. If you want to see his tweets on Devin Booker, if you want to see his tweets about Jabari Smith, they're all now organized in a neat way. If you search the KD files on X, it's pretty easy to find. But Kevin Durant did not tweet at all in the last 2 days prior to today. He still hasn't. We're on day 3. It's been 3 days. The last time Kevin Durant posted a tweet was February. We're on day 4 now. February 14th, Valentine's Day, was the last time Kevin Durant posted a tweet. He has not tweeted since. At least that's what I see. I'm going to look at his replies, make sure he hasn't replied to anything. So he replied. So he replied on the 15th. So yeah, this is in terms of any kind of conversation. He's not replied. He's not tweeted since February 15th. All right, at 1 p.m. Trying to do my math on. So what was that? That was Sunday, right? Yeah, it was Sunday. So he tweets on Sunday at 1 p.m. responding to somebody who, you know how he is. Someone responds, "Hey, I don't like how you say this," or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, why can't I say that?" So that was basically the response, and he has not tweeted since then. I mean, if he's not guilty, this is weird behavior. I'm sorry. If you're not guilty of putting out having a burner account where you're now, these are the stuff that are posted. I'm sure 95% of the rest of the group chat that he's in is probably normal, because otherwise we would see more of this, right? I don't think he's in a group chat where he's only saying, Devin Booker and Frank Vogel are war criminals. Literally things he says in one of these tweets, apparently. But I look at this and I'm like, man, you look guilty as a mofo, man. Like, for someone, that guy is glued to his phone, as we see. We saw that during All-Star Weekend. You're glued to your phone and you tweet all the time and you talk about how much you enjoy Twitter because you love the banter. And these DMs and tweets get revealed and you haven't posted in 3 days, 3 full days. It's not a good look. Not a good look for Kevin Durant. So we'll see what happens when he comes to the Garden. I actually hope the Garden crowd gives it to him a little bit. I don't know how they would, but they chant burner account, burner account, burner account, something, I don't know. Or chant the name of whatever the burner account handle was, or something to get after Kevin Durant. The Garden crowd, again, is usually pretty funny. I'm trying to see if I can just pull up the schedule one more time. So yeah, so you got Detroit, Houston, Chicago obviously is not a great team, but then you got Cleveland, again, Milwaukee's not a great team. Then you got Toronto, San Antonio, Oklahoma City. Then you got, it's a pretty tough beginning of a road trip where you got Denver, and the Lakers to start. And the Clippers have been playing better ball. We'll see what they are without Kawhi Leonard. So it's not like a gauntlet stretch, but there are some important games here. Like, this Detroit game is massive, I think. I think Knicks got to send a message that, hey, I know you guys are the quote-unquote new bad boys, but we're not going to be pushed around, and you guys are still little brother, because that's how the Knicks basically treated them last year. And the Rockets are a team that I don't think are championship contenders, but a very good Western Conference team that is going to be extremely dangerous, obviously, coming to the Garden, because all teams come to the Garden and want to play well, and they have very good players. So there's some big games, some good games. I think this Cavs game on the road is going to be interesting as well, because that's again, a team that's playing excellent basketball. They were playing great before they got James Harden, and they've been playing great with James Harden as well. By the way, again, we talked about, pricing out fans and all those things. It's hard to look at. I could always tell what games are at home and what games are on the road, not by even looking at this versus an at button. I can look at tickets as low as. And if there's a 3-digit number on the right side, then that's probably a home game. If it's a single-digit or double-digit number, then then I know it's not a Knicks home game. Because there's no way you have a home game, you get them $51. That's not happening. Should it happen? Yes. Is that ever going to happen? Definitely not. So that's just kind of funny just to see. It was like, say, oh, where's the game play? Well, how price of the tickets? Oh, $342 million. Yep, that San Antonio Spurs game is definitely at home. If you want to get to see Wembanyama at home with the Knicks coming hosting the Spurs and Wemby coming to town, if you want to take a family, it's going to take you basically, again, rent money to afford that. So that goes to a little bit what Mark Cuban was saying last night when it came to the NBA and whether or not it should actually embrace tanking and not be so concerned about it. By the way, let's go to the chat here. We got one here from John Lean. He said, I love interacting, but I don't want the negativity. I'm not sure why he's so locked in on social media. Talking about Kevin Durant. Yeah, I don't know. I've said this a ton, and it could sound a certain way. I gave up saying it because he keeps saying that I'm good and I'm fine and whatever. But I used to say this a ton. I said, let's just ask him a question like, is Kevin Durant okay? I don't know his personal life. I don't know anything about him other than he's a great basketball player. And he's one of the most skilled big men, maybe the most skilled big man ever, because we forget he's 6'11", and he does the things that he does. It's ridiculous. I just feel like, again, maybe a lot of other people move like him, and I just don't know them. I just feel someone who has the level of talent and the money and you would think happiness in the world, it doesn't seem the healthiest behavior to be consistently engaged with random people on the internet. I know people that have kind of defended it have went like, well, everyone does it, or a lot of people do it. Kevin Durant is just like us. But he's not like his fellow peers. Like his peers don't do this, not regularly. At least it doesn't. At least I don't think so. I could be wrong, but and not so transparently. It seems strange to me, which is why, again, I even beyond just flaming him and getting after him, because I know, to be clear, I did say that. I thought, because I do believe that it is. I think it's loser behavior to engage in a burner account to push narratives for yourself. If you're a public figure, I think that is one of the corniest things anybody could do. And while I didn't love him getting after random people on social media who said opinions that he didn't like or tried to diss him or whatever, I did respect that he started doing it from his own account, like with his name Kevin Durant attached to it. Do I think that it was like way beneath him to do this and silly? Yeah, but at least now he's doing it, but with his name. He's not faking like some random fan trying to talk and speak for Kevin Durant when he's actually Kevin Durant. And that is weirdo behavior to me. That will always be strange and always be odd. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe he's just, I don't know, this is something he likes, and I try not to judge. But to me, it wasn't about judgment. It was actual concern. I was like, is this guy okay? These aren't the movements of someone that's okay to me. I was told, oh, you're being too big deal out of it. Oh, you're just jealous of the God because he loves to call himself a God. Oh, your kid. I'm like, all right, I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it alone. But this is weirdo stuff. And 3 whole days, and you're not going back on social media, and that guy, again, is on there every day. It seems like every time he's not on a basketball court, he's on social media. He just loves engaging with people in what feels like a mostly negative way. I don't know why you bring that aggravation onto yourself. I don't know why you would, for someone who lives in there, you would take such a positive life. Like, you got all this money, you play this great game, you have all the talent in the world. We know he has a insane dedication to this game, because you can't not have that and be as good as he is. So why is this such a hang-up for him? Why can't he let this go, or just engage in a normal way? I'm not even saying you had to get rid of social media, because I hate that too. Because that's something me and my good friend Andy Perloff used to argue about back and forth. Because he would say, players who deal with, because what I always try to tell him is, listen, the abuse that these guys get on social media, because that's what it is. We need to. I use that word on purpose, because I think that when you use anything less, it minimizes a real problem with how people engage with athletes on social media. Because what they are doing is abuse. The abuse that these athletes take, I don't think we could ever understand. And we don't understand what that does to a human and does to a person, because these are people at the end of the day. And I really try my best to get that across to people. And that's why, I step to this mic. I try to be as responsible as possible. I want to be authentic. Every rule of every show I do, EJ keeps 100. If I think someone is acting in a certain way, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to be real about it. But I don't want to go across the line or say things that I know can actually cut at a person's core, because I think we have to be responsible with any platform you have, big or small. That is how I firmly believe. And I'll be the first one to say, hey, if I stepped out of line, I stepped out of line. I remember I said that, I tweeted that. The only time I ever did that, I thought I jumped way over the line on a Joe Burrow comment. That's not something that I stick with, but I'm just thinking about things in my head that, like, we were on Maggie Perloff's show one time, and I had already had not a beef, but I had a problem with Joe Burrow. It was around the time he had he was upset about his relationship being revealed with his now girlfriend, and he went on this whole diatribe about how it was not the media's business to know who he is hanging out with, who his girlfriends are, and it was like this affront that was revealed that he was spending time with this model. And I had a personal, it wasn't him having a problem with it. He's a person. I don't have a problem with it. I had a problem with just it felt almost forced, and it felt kind of fake, and it felt like a wagging finger of how dare you talk about my outside football life, even though all this guy ever wants is people to talk about his outside football life. He shows up at fashion shows every off season. He wants to walk runways and red carpets. Like, he puts himself out there as a sex symbol. You can't want the money that comes with that and then not want anyone to know what your personal life is, and especially who you're dating, when you're a fashion model, which is essentially what Joe Burrow is in the off season. If you don't want that, don't do that. And we won't cover you going to France and going to Cannes and going to all these, and Nice and all these beautiful places in the world to show out for fashion and to be seen. We won't cover that, or we won't care about that. But you want us to, because that makes you money. That helps your brand. You know what else is part of your brand? People want to know who you're dating, because you're a very handsome man who loves fashion. And I thought that this finger wagging and you guys don't actually understand how this media business works thing, I thought was extremely corny. I still think it's extremely corny. But I remember something else happened. That was nothing to do with that. But I've been holding that as a take I had, and I already said it. And then something else happened, and I flew at the handle and I was like, oh, he's a freaking clown. And I thought, well, that feels personal. That feels like I'm carrying something, which I was. I was taking something that it was said a month ago that I thought was ridiculous, and I was applying it to something else he was talking about that wasn't clownish. Whatever he said, it wasn't that big a deal, and I flew at the handle. And I think I tweeted next, hey, I said something about Joe Burrow today that I don't think was fair or right, and I apologize. And I think that as people who step to a mic and people who do this as a living, I think we gotta be more willing to do that. I think we need to be fine with being able to say, hey, like, you know, I was wrong. What I said was out of line. Like, let's move on. I think fans and athletes, I think they would accept that. I think they'd be okay. But I think we're in this world where you can't never be wrong, and you can never waver, and you can never show weakness. So therefore, we die on hills that are unnecessary. So I use all that point to say that, you know, athletes, they take real abuse from fans, and that's people. And I'm talking about me as a media member. And I'm thinking, man, Joe Burrow. And then I think about he seemed to have some kind of, I don't want to say he had mental health issues. I don't know, but he definitely seemed to be sad about how this year went. He seemed to have a bad year. He got robbed. It was a terrible year. There's no question about that. But so I think about that. I think we all got responsible. I wish fans were more responsible when they want to get in the player's DM and say, "Yo, you suck. I wish you do this, this, and that." Like that is again. You want to talk about scumbag behavior? That's another thing. You want to say what's another thing that I would judge you for? If you get into an athlete's mentions because of some kind of failure they have on a court or a field, you are also a loser. Complete loser, complete jerk. Like an athlete trying their best to win a game, missing a shot, missing a field goal, doing whatever, and you think it's smart or cool to say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, I'm going to threaten your family. Like that is, you're a jerk. You're an absolute jerk. And you're most of these people are doing it behind anonymous accounts. Awful stuff. Which is why, again, I go back to Kevin Durant. Why would you want to be in this world? Why? Most athletes don't want to be in that world. They've learned very quickly, oh, this is bad. Let me use this as a marketing ploy, use to push, you know, promo or make some bread, like, you know, do some SpawnCon, as my fiance says, and then I'll just step away. You want to have a burner to just watch stuff. Sure, I want to be on social media and people see it, and I could lurk and whatever, but I'm not going to be having a public facing social media account. For Kevin Durant to want to be in the mud with the worst of the worst people, it doesn't strike me as someone that is, again, considering how successful he is, that's doing great. He says he is. Everyone who knows him says he is. They say he's just a great guy. He's doing fine. I don't know. Those DMs, those tweets don't strike me as someone that is perfectly content with where their career is at this point. But yeah, that's again I've been doing a lot of these EJ/Alicia Stewart rants randomly. But yeah, man, like I don't know if this is gonna be Kevin Durant turning over a new leaf when it comes to maybe this is the end. Like maybe he's not on social media anymore. I don't know. I find that hard to believe. I think he's addicted to it, if I'm being honest. Which we all are. I'm addicted to social media. I think people who engage with that on a regular basis and can't stop, they are usually addicted to social media. We don't say that because I don't think we've evolved to treating things like social media as an addiction, because I think it would scare a lot of people because everyone's on it. But if you be real, think about how much time you spend on your phone, on social media, on X, or on YouTube even. It's not quite social media, but it's a little similar. Like, yeah, these are addictions. There's no doubt about that. And John Lee saying, I don't think he has many friends. I have no idea. But I do know, as an athlete, it can be a lonely place to be someone like that. When you make that much money, just because of the money you make, you have to keep your circle small, because just for your own safety, you have to keep your circle small. And then you got to find people who are actually genuine and not people who are just there because you have a lot of money. So it can be tricky, I know. And yeah, it can be tricky. I'm gonna leave it there. That's a little thing to say about it. I'm not trying to get personal, but if you don't have that support system around you, you can maybe search for that in other places. Maybe that's what Kevin Durant is doing with this. There was a time where, again, I felt like I tried to really be a little sensitive to that criticism of him, because I was like, this guy this doesn't look normal to me. This doesn't look like the actions of a normal person. That was when he was posted about, like, as a fake person, why Kevin Durant felt like he had to leave the Warriors, and how, like, he didn't like playing for Billy Donovan and Russell Westbrook, and him had no help. And I'm like, what? You're doing this? Why are you doing this from a fake account? What are you doing? What are you actually doing? Like, is this real? So I don't know. Yeah, but anyway, let's keep it moving. Let's keep moving today on 48 for next. We're on day 28 here. I'm not feeling good about the WNBA, man. If you want to see WNBA basketball this summer, I don't know if you're gonna get the volume of games, I don't know if you're going to get. I can't even guarantee you're going to get a season, to be honest, in terms of where things are. So, at where they stand currently, there was a counter proposal offered where there were some concessions on revenue sharing and housing, which is good. This was via ESPN. Alexa Filippo, shout out to her. She does an excellent job covering the WNBA. Said, according to a source familiar with the proposal, the Players Union is now asking for an average of 27.5% of gross revenue, defined as revenue before deducting expenses, over the course of the agreement, including 25% and less than $9.5 million in salary cap in the year one of the new CBA. This is different from their December proposal, where the players asked for 31% of gross revenue and 28% in the first year, and that was roughly $10.5 million in salary cap. They also, again, the concessions on housing. They said that, because right now, which I didn't know, what's interesting about this whole negotiation is you learn a lot about the WNBA through this negotiation. Because the things like, oh, I didn't know this. So the WNBA right now, they currently provide housing for players. That's something which I guess makes sense. A lot of players don't actually live full time in the cities that they play in, because it's a summer league basically. And a lot of them have to play. Previously, they had to play overseas. Now, because of some of these new, Unrivaled and all these other different things they have here in the States, now some of them don't have to do that quite as often. But they have to provide housing for these players for when they come and play for the summer for their teams. I guess this has been a sticking point because the players ask for all this money and these huge raises. So the WNBA is saying, okay, if we're giving these huge raises, go buy your own house or rent your own apartment. Why are we now providing you housing? So on the issue of housing, I'm reading this again from the article from ESPN, which has been a critical point in negotiations. The players proposed that teams continue to provide housing to players in the first several years of the new agreement, but that in later years, teams will no longer be obligated to provide housing for players making close to the maximum salary on multi-year deals, receiving full salary protection, a source said. So these are the concessions that were made. Again, this article said WNBA teams have been required to provide housing for players since the first CBA was ratified in '99, and then the previous agreement, which officially expired in January after 2 extensions, teams could provide housing in the form of a 1-bedroom or a stipend, but the league had not included housing provisions in its proposals before its latest one. So that is where things stand as of right now. But again, according to ESPN, I don't think it's being taken very kindly to this recent agreement. WNBA has called this proposal unrealistic. So that's not a good sign in terms of whether or not this is actually something that could actually strike this. This was a statement they gave late Tuesday night to ESPN. They said the Players Association's latest proposal remains unrealistic and would cause hundreds of millions of dollars of losses for our teams. We still need to complete 2 drafts, a 2-team expansion draft, and a college draft and free agency before the start of training camp, and are running out of time. We believe the WNBA's proposal would result in a huge win for current players and generations to come. So this is a 16-month now negotiation that appears to be still stalled. A source familiar with the situation told ESPN that the league projects that the WNBA's new plan will result in losses of $460 million over the lifetime of the agreement. So they're not under the impression that there won't be any losses. That's not how they view it. Again, the whole point of this is you take some losses, but you hope that the investment proves to be big money coming to you in the end, because you have the product that people are definitely now more invested in. WNBA is as popular as it's ever been. This is the height of its popularity right now. ESPN reported in December that the league projected the union's previous plan would result in $700 million in losses over the course of the agreement, and that it would jeopardize the league's financial health. The union believed its revenue sharing model would still put the league in a profitable position. So I don't think this is something that's going to get solved. It feels like when I was a kid, when multiple leagues were having CBA warfare. I kind of feel it's been if you're a kid today, you've been watching sports since 2000, 2005, let's say 2006, since the NHL lockout. You've watched it since then, so at that time, so if you're in your early 20s, you're probably man, I've never seen CBA issues like actually threaten seasons before. Because like we had the one NFL lockout that I don't think ever really threatened the NFL season. Like it was a big deal. We talked about it all the time because it was the NFL. But they eventually got the numbers right, and then Robert Kraft was spearheading those efforts, and eventually we got a deal and they play football. But I remember as a kid, like a baseball strike, which was a little before I was like really aware of what was going on. But as I'm looking at, like everyone's into this home run contest, like this home run chase between McGuire and Sosa, and people are like, well, this is the best thing since the strike. I was like, there was a strike. As I'm like an 8-year-old, right, trying to understand all of this. So I had the strike in baseball. I had the lockout NBA season of 99, which ended up being great because the Knicks won a title. But 99, 98, 99 lockout. NHL lost an entire season. Like I've seen some, as a kid, I've seen some dark CBA years. And then since then, I don't know if he missed any time. I guess the only thing, technically, if you want to count the COVID MLB season, but I don't really count that. That's a whole different category. Otherwise, in terms of the major sports, I don't think there's been major games missed in any sport. I guess the NBA had another one. The NBA had one. That was the season, what was that, 2013, I want to say? 2013 season. You want to say, okay, that was... you lost some games, fine. That was already the one time. Now you're looking at, I think, WNBA, that now it's important to more people. Lockout coming. Major League Baseball, big lockout coming. I have concerns that there's going to be a season. And the NBA players, I think, are not going to just lay down like they did the last two CBAs. Because that's what they did. They laid down. They fought for that one in, 13 or whatever. But the last two they signed, they just laid down. They're not laying down again, I think. So I'm curious what the NBA lockout's going to look like, especially given how miserable NBA players are, which is something that Adam Silver talks about all the time, that their mental health is bad, and they talk about how they don't feel the NBA has had a handle on handling fans, both in arenas and on social media. So I think that if you're a kid that kind of avoided a lot of this, or you're a young fan that avoided a lot of this, it's like, get ready to learn CBA negotiations, buddy, because I think you're going to be hearing a lot about this in the coming years. But this question that remains for the WNBA that I think remains a question that is important, which is, how much can you afford to lose in actual games being played without losing momentum for the league, for the popularity you've built? Because the WNBA has never shied away in terms of its players leading the charge as being a league that is socially progressive. And it's a league that it lends itself to that because of the players in the league. You have a lot of players that are LGBTQ. You have a lot of players that are obviously of different races and ethnicities. So it's just natural that this would be the case, right? You have women's rights that are on the line for a lot of these women's rights. So with that comes polarization. So what we've seen in terms of how the WNBA is covered is it doesn't get covered solely from a basketball standpoint anymore. It gets covered now from a larger cultural context for everything that happens, especially anything involving Caitlin Clark. So with that popularity has also come way more haters and way more villains and way more people that actually are not looking out for the WNBA's best interest every time they open up a mic or open up their mouths. So I wonder how long can you play this game? And I know it's not a game. I don't mean to sound facetious about it. These are people's lives, and this is the future of women's sports on the line. The stakes are as high as they could be. But how long can you have this fight and not sacrifice all the goodwill that you gained? Where maybe folks who, just as you have people with the megaphone saying, hey, WNBA is awesome, this game is awesome, these women are awesome, and people are now invested. They want to watch Caitlin Clark, they want to watch Angel Reese, they want to watch these players now. How many of them, as this, they fight for more money and they fight for what they believe is theirs, and sometimes there's dissension as to who deserves the credit for the success of the WNBA. How long does that become people saying, maybe these guys that keep telling me, oh, WNBA is, they're not as powerful as you think they are. Oh, they don't deserve all the money you think they do. And, oh, they don't do this and that. And, oh, they have all these cultural issues. When does that chorus become loud and actually start influencing the popularity of the game and fans? I don't have the answer to it, but I think it's something that if you're not considering it, I think you're naive. If you're both the WNBA and the players, I think that they live the experience better. I can't even speak to the experience because I'm not a woman and obviously don't play in the WNBA. But they know this experience better than me. But so they're not naive to it. They know what I'm talking about. How long are you willing to fight this out for every dollar and cent and sacrifice that voice carrying the day? And then when you try to come back and play after you secured whatever money you wanted or secured whatever concessions you wanted, whether you're in the NBA or WNBA side, are there people here that are still ready and willing to be engaged with your league, with your sport? Because like I said yesterday, man, when I had that rant I had about people's attention spans, they're very short. I could already feel Caitlin Clark becoming yesterday's news. I'm being real. I could feel it. I could feel it. It may sound hyperbolic to some who love the WNBA or love the Fever or love Iowa basketball or just are Caitlin Clark fans. Think about the Fever when, no pun intended, when Caitlin Clark had her last season at Iowa and then entered the WNBA. And think about how much we were talking about her games, the things that were happening in those games, everything she was doing. She was a mega star. What I'd say about not just athletes but all entertainers is like, we think that these moments of super mega stardom last forever, but we don't realize that those runs are actually usually pretty short. Where you're like super A-list and you're all that we're talking about and you're the hottest thing. And as the years go on, they become shorter, those windows. And I'm someone who, I produce for a nationally syndicated radio show. I've produced for local news. I know I feel like I got a good sense of the pulse of what people want to talk about, what people want to hear about, and what are still hot button topics. I feel like that's an instinct I feel confident in. I always feel confident in because of my experience. I feel her becoming old news, which means the WNBA in turn would then become old news. Which is why I'm wondering, you guys are going to fight this fight and you should get it. And maybe you shouldn't care about things about how more popular we remain. You should maybe just be only caring about getting the bag if you're a WNBA player. That's totally fine. I get that. Because this is your opportunity. Forget about what the league fails. You want to get your money and secure money for women that are playing after you. I get that. But if you do want to sustain yourself as being one of those now top-end leagues, like it is now in the conversation. Like, I think it was right. It used to be comparable with like MLS. I don't think you can say that anymore. No question. It's now entering. It's not the big four. It really is the big one, and then there's three other sports that are North American sports. It's football, NFL, and then there's NBA, MLB, NHL. It's not quite there, but it's getting close. It's getting close to like creeping up on like the NHL. Like it's getting there. How much do you lose if you blow this? Like, think about the NHL. Like, the reason why this is close is because the NHL missed the season. I don't think they still have recovered. I think about like, and I think about myself. I think I'm the prime example. I always joke about, let's do that hockey. I tell you guys, I was a huge hockey fan as a kid. And maybe it's just your kid sensibilities and like you only know what you know, right? And your parents try to put you in front of things that are positive, so they try to avoid negativity. Doesn't mean I wasn't watching Attitude Era, WWE and things like that. Maybe sometimes against my parents' wishes, but it's something that you always try to help the kids with. So my parents didn't care what sport I watched. They were totally fine with me watching people being active, people being competitive. Like they thought it was good influence, and I think it is a good influence. But I loved hockey as a kid. Played all the NHL, EA Sports games. My friend, shout out to my childhood friend Michael Siegel. He was a hockey player, so we would play we didn't have backyards because you lived in like a co-op, kind of situation, but front yard kind of hockey in front of his stoop. He threw me in the goalie gear, me not knowing what the hell I'm doing. I don't even think he even put skates on me because I didn't know how to skate. But he just did, and it's kind of funny thing about it. Like, this was him just firing a puck at me at whatever speed it was, just for the hell of it. I don't think this was about actually having a fun time or a good game. Shout out to Mike though. But like, him putting me in hockey gear and just firing slap shots at me for an hour or 2 hours, and that was like our day. That was us having fun. So I used to love hockey. That lockout happened, man. And I was like, all right. And then I moved on to other things. And when they came back, I never got into it the same again. I never got into it the same again. So I used to think like the baseball strike didn't. It didn't compute to me when I was young. I was like, so wait, you just stopped watching because they didn't play for a certain stretch? Like, why didn't you just come back? Like, it's still baseball. Don't you love the sport? It does something to you as a sports fan, especially again if you're more of a casual. Where you're like, what? You didn't play a year? All right, whatever. I'm just gonna go find something else to do. And then you find something else you love, and then you stick with that. So I think the WNBA, this is a real concern for them. I don't think that this is just we can just fight this thing. We don't have a season. We missed a ton of games. Who cares? There's going to be real ish to pay if this goes really south and you have a prolonged lockout. Because they're also in a situation where they're not top priorities in a lot of these NBA arenas. So there's that too. Like, they don't have an unlimited window to negotiate. There's a reality that at a certain point in time, if they push this into the spring and push this into the summer, the NBA is coming back in late October, early November. You're not going to have the dates to actually put together a season. This is what is 100% on the line for this WNBA. I think it's going to be another important story to follow. Let's talk Chris Paul. So he exits the Clippers in unceremonious fashion. He then has to retire. He was traded to the Toronto Raptors, who waived him. He then announced his retirement abruptly. He had said this was going to be his final year, and he wanted to spend it with the Clippers because his family lives in LA, and this was an important thing to him. This is the franchise I think he wanted to be remembered by. I wonder if that is still the case now. I also kind of wonder, I know the Hornets don't exist as they were, so it makes it weird. But I still think of him as New Orleans star Chris Paul. Like, that's still how I think of him, to me. But whatever. I feel like if the basketball did what the Baseball Hall of Fame does, which I think is really cool, which is guys being able to go in with a certain hat, I would argue that Chris Paul should go in with a Hornets jersey, not a Clippers jersey. But again, that's maybe me opinion. So Chris Paul, he actually speaking out now. So this is the beginning of this, right? There's going to be more of this. And he was on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn with Carmelo Anthony and Kazim Famuyide. Shout out to both of them. It seems like this was done at All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles. So people might have been there and actually heard the whole conversation, but I don't think the conversation has been posted yet. Let me just make sure. It was not on their YouTube. Let me just make sure they didn't, like, some people post stuff on their podcast channel, but then don't actually post it on their YouTube because they want people to listen to the podcast first and then post the YouTube videos later. So I just want to quickly double check, make sure that it isn't out everywhere. So I'm like, oh, go listen to it. But 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so last episode, no, so it's not up. The last episode is the DeMarcus Cousins episode. So shout out to Boogie Cousins. But here's Chris Paul on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn in an episode that I assume will be out at some point. I assume next week because these episodes, I think, drop every Monday. Here's Paul saying that things actually started out okay with the Clippers.
When that thing happened with the Clippers, I don't really talk to nobody, but I talk to Kawhi about every week. You know what I'm saying? If I was that bad, why I'm talking?
Kawhi be talking?
Why be talking all the time? I hit T-Lou, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love to finish my career here. L. Frank, I hit him, said the same thing. Early in the season, Lawrence Frank sent me an article about how great my leadership was. An article I had never seen. He texted it to me saying, man, this is great leadership right here. I was extremely grateful. You saw I was emotional.
Yes, absolutely.
When I went back, I knew it was going to be my last year, and I was getting to play in front of my family.
That's crazy that Lawrence Frank sent him an article about how great Chris Paul had been as a leader and sent it to him the week before he got exiled. That's crazy. That is an interesting detail from Chris Paul there. So again, we get to, okay, seemed to start out okay. He says he still has a good relationship with Kawhi Leonard, the best player on the team, who still texts him and they still talk regularly, even though they jettisoned him out of there. So, again, what the hell is actually going on? Well, Chris Paul just gives one example. Again, the full interview, I guess, will come out next week. Here's just one example of Chris Paul saying that the team was uncomfortable with his presence there.
I still was grasping, you know what I mean, trying to figure out how it got to that. I believe in communication. During training camp, I talked to one of my teammates for a while, and then as soon as I went in the meal room, somebody came and told me, like, they didn't want me giving players advice. So I told them, I was like, you were my assistant coach. I know you. But it was just a lot of back and forth.
That's weird. So Chris Paul, it seems to be, I don't know, it just seems to be like it's a constant thing with this relationship with Chris Paul and the coaching staff, where Chris Paul is telling players, hey, do X, Y, and Z in a practice or in a game situation, and then the coaches or somebody's getting to Chris Paul being like, hey, don't do that. Which is my thing. My question is, why the hell did you bring Chris Paul in? What do you think Chris Paul was going to be? Chris Paul is a floor general. Chris Paul is a point guard in the truest of forms, not like most of these scoring guards we have today that are just playing kind of what we call the lead guard position. Chris Paul is an actual point guard, and he has a lot of knowledge. Why wouldn't you want him talking to your players and advising them on how they can be better players? I don't quite understand that. The earlier conversation that was, or earlier reporting we've had about other instances that were final straws was him apparently suggesting actual like coaching adjustments, like, hey, you shouldn't guard that guy. You have a problem with him. Switch off and guard that guy. And that seemed a little more, maybe a player shouldn't be saying that, or at the very least, maybe a player should go to the coach and say, hey, I wonder if we should do X, Y, and Z. Not just saying, hey, yo, you guys should switch. That is a little bit crossing the line. If that did happen, again, that's just one side of the story. But it feels like of all the times where you want players to have communication and Chris Paul to be locked into helping the guy out, you would think it would be practice. That's exactly the time where you'd want that to happen. So what I sense is there's some insecurity in the Clippers coaching staff. I think there's insecurity when it comes to Ty Lue. I think there's insecurity when it comes to Jeff Van Gundy, who reportedly was a guy that like really stepped to Chris Paul on the team plane and said, hey, like, I don't know who you think you are or where you think you can get away with this, but you can't get away with that here. The thought process of saying, I don't know who you are to Chris Paul is mind-boggling to me, even for someone as famous and as successful a coach as Jeff Van Gundy is. I'm like, this is Chris Paul. I'm sorry. He's more successful at what he's done than what you've done. Just being totally honest and totally fair. Shout out to Jeff Van Gundy, but that's just a reality. I know Jeff Van Gundy say, well, I went to a finals. Okay. He's a better NBA player than you were an NBA coach. No one would argue with that. Not one person. And if you do, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. You are. So I do think that there's some problems with that Clipper coaching staff. I think that they won't be here this next year. Almost regardless of how the season ends. I think that even if they scratch away at a playoff spot, which is still possible, the Clippers right now, as things stand today, let's see the standings. They are in the play-in. They have the final spot in the play-in, which is 10th. But to be honest, they're a lock to make the play-in. I'll see if I can show you my screen here so you can see for yourself. But they are essentially a lock to make the play-in because with the way the play-in works now and the way the Western Conference is structured, the teams that are behind them, Memphis and Dallas, have absolutely no interest in making up 6 to 7 games of actual standings movement in order to jump the Clippers. Those are teams, we keep talking about the tanking, right, and how much tanking has been all this big problem. Those teams have zero interest in making the playoffs. So the Clippers will have an opportunity to make the playoffs. That is going to happen. And I think with Kawhi, the way he's playing, you'd have to give him, even without Ivica Zubac, you'd have to give him a punching shot against definitely the Blazers in a play-in game situation, and 100% against the Suns or the Warriors. You'd have to say the Clippers have a shot to get to the playoffs. So they might even get to the playoffs. I just think that with the trade they made with James Harden and the trade they made for Bennett Mathurin and that what they hope to be a lottery pick, but certainly a future first-round pick. Clippers understand that they look into the future. So I think that what that will mean is you will have probably a different coaching staff in next year. You'll probably also have... I wonder what happens with Kawhi Leonard. And I said this to Dex the other day. Like, it's too bad that guy loves that San Diego mansion he lives in so much. He loves San Diego so much. I understand it. San Diego is my favorite city. And I may or may not be going there for my bachelor party. That's how much I love the city. So it's a beautiful place. So much so that Kawhi is willing to commute 2 hours to work and play for the Los Angeles Clippers, which is where he's from. But he went to, obviously, school in San Diego. And again, I would understand why you want to live there if you can. I think you just look at the situation, though, and I'm like, what are we doing? After this year, you got to move on from Kawhi, right? I'm actually curious what the Clippers' future pick situation is. I know they have a bunch that, including this year's pick, that have to go to the Thunder for that. What is now, we talk about the Luka Doncic trade being the worst trade in NBA history. Paul George trade has to be up there as well. Has to be way high up there for worst trades in NBA history. I mean, think about the fact that they gave up all those first-round picks for a guy that is not there currently, obviously. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is the reigning MVP, who just took his team to an NBA championship and won. And appears to be one of the elite players in the NBA for the next 5 years or so. That is as brutal. To me, it's just as bad as Luka Doncic trade. If you really think about it, it's just as bad. The Clippers didn't get an NBA championship appearance out of it. They got one conference finals out of it, and in that conference finals, Kawhi Leonard didn't even play, so you really didn't have a real shot to go to the finals, realistically. So they never really had a realistic shot at ever getting to a championship. They traded a future megastar, not even a superstar. It's you can't even call Shai a superstar. That's actually too low of a thing in terms of ranking him among the great NBA players. You traded a megastar in the NBA. All of these first-round picks that are gone. You're going away in 1 in 26 for this year. They have the right to swap in 27. So if you suck next year, there's a good chance that they're going to be able to swap with you and take your pick next year, and you'll have to go back into the first round. You don't have your pick for 28. It's brutal. Absolutely brutal. That is where they stand right now. I would love to put that out there. I'm trying to think about it more and more. I think the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander Paul George trade is a worse trade than Luka to the Lakers. The Luka trade to the Lakers at the time, in terms of just like the face value of who this guy is now and what you got for him, that was a worse trade from that standpoint, because who Luka Doncic was, all NBA player, MVP candidate, just came off taking the team to the NBA Finals. You trade him for street clothes. You got essentially almost no first round picks. It was bizarre. And Max Christie. It was bizarre. It's something that we still won't quite understand. Face value, and again, face value for the Clippers and the Shai trade. Shai looked awesome his rookie year. And I first of all, I always say NBA drafts hands. I always raise my hand for guys I screw up. I don't raise my hand and say, hey, I told you how good Shai was coming out of college. I told you how good Shai was in his first year. I said this kid could be a potential star. Did I think he was going to be an MVP? No, but I thought he could be really good. I knew he had the goods, and he had the goods his rookie year. He was playing real minutes on a team at 19, 20 years old for a team that was playing in the playoffs. It was clear that he was going to be a very good player. Again, they didn't know he was going to be MVP. So at face value, you say, okay, well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't an all-NBA player, MVP candidate when they traded him for Paul George. He was a rookie who has just come off a promising first year, but the jury was still out, I guess, on whether or not he was going to become a star. And they gave all this draft capital, but they hoped that they will be a contending team. On the face value of it, you can say, yes, this was not as bad. But I think in terms of the results of how things shaped out, and of course, we got to let the Luka Doncic trade play out a little bit. The results of it could not have been more diabolical for the Clippers and more fruitful for the Thunder. That is one of the greatest trades in NBA history. Trade Paul George, who had no interest in sticking around, and trade him for a future MVP who led you to a championship. I don't know, when you talk about the great trades of all time and in the worst trades of all time, on the flip side, Find me a lot that are better than that in terms of the results. The results absolutely paid off for the Thunder in that situation. For the Clippers side, the one thing I will say, like I said to start this, this is, I think, only the beginning of this. I don't think this is going to end. I think this is going to continue to get messy because Chris Paul is a messy dude. Chris Paul is going to have no problem. He already saying a little bit here. He's going to drop probably a little bit more during the actual podcast. And best believe, because the Clippers are the Clippers and they seem to never get PR right, they will find a way to prolong this story to try to defend themselves. And I would fully expect them to fire back with other accusations that Chris Paul was doing. And it wouldn't surprise me. Chris Paul is Chris Paul. Again, we know how he is. That's why it's so weird that this thing broke down the way it did. Because they should know Chris Paul better than anybody. Especially Ballmer and Lawrence Frank. Because Lawrence Frank, I believe, was there. He might have been on the coaching staff when Chris Paul was there. Let me make sure I'm not making that up. But he almost certainly he was there in some capacity. See, Lawrence Frank. Let's look at his basketball history. New Yorker, by the way. So you got a New Yorker dealing with all this nonsense with the Clippers. So yeah, he was a Clippers assistant in 2014 to 2016, and then he became executive vice president in 2016. Chris Paul was definitely playing for the Clippers in 2014. I can look this up, but I'm almost certain that he was playing there. So Lawrence Frank knows Chris Paul extremely well. What did he think he was getting when he brought in Chris Paul? Like, do you think Chris Paul was going to be a wallflower, that he was going to just sit around and not give advice, not say his opinions, and not be Chris Paul? People who aren't, I don't even work in the NBA, and I know how Chris Paul is. It's just the stories about him are, and they're not even stories, they're just things we actually see on the court. We are able to actually watch for ourselves, watch it with our own eyes. Like, we know how Chris Paul is. So what did the Clippers think they were getting? That's my confusion as sort of why this thing broke down so badly, is Chris Paul is an outspoken guy who's going to make his presence felt. He's an alpha. He's an absolute alpha. And him being at the end of his career is not going to change anything. And it seems like things he was doing, I don't know, it just seems like regular OG stuff. It seems like stuff Udonis Haslem would do. Like, did they not want to play the Udonis Haslem role? What did they want? What I think is you have a front office and a coaching staff that is extremely paranoid that their jobs are on the line. They didn't get out of the first round last year. Steve Ballmer's paying all these guys a lot of money. Now Steve Ballmer has heat on him because of this Kawhi situation, and they came in with expectations. I foolishly said that the Clippers would be a great team this year. Me and Perloff kept arguing who would have a better season, the Rockets or the Clippers. Thank goodness I didn't put actual stakes on that to make that another bet I'd have to pay off. But we argued about that on the show. I was filling in for Maggie Gray, and I said I think the Clippers will have a better record. I think they'll be a better team. I said that I thought they'd advance further in the playoffs than the Rockets would. That seems insane now. I think the roster that they put together, it didn't seem insane at the time, but it's been an utter disaster. And I think that everyone's feeling the pressure and feeling the heat. And that's why I think they flew off the handle when it came to dealing with Chris Paul. Was Chris Paul probably annoying? Yes. Was he probably being a little too outspoken? Yes. Did it mean that the greatest player in the history of your organization, if you care at all about like keeping the legacy of the Clippers, whatever that even means, alive and sustained and strong? Does that mean that you jettison him out of the organization and have him retire in shame? I would think that you should have been able to figure that out. That's a still, I don't care what Chris Paul did. That's still a terrible job by the Clipper organization. Terrible. But they're the Clippers. So it's almost like they get away with it because it's like, well, what do we expect from those clowns? And it's like, fair. I still don't think it should have ended this way with your greatest player, arguably, in franchise history. This was one of the things you had to see to believe. And obviously, I don't want to play video because I don't want to get caught with any kind of copyright strike or anything like that. But Mick Cronin ejected his own player from last night's loss to Michigan State in a game that was not competitive. I tried to watch this game because I'm looking for stuff to watch last night. And it's halftime, and the game's already out of reach between UCLA and Michigan State. One thing I will say, by the way, I want to make sure I get this tweet right. I'll find the tweet from John Rossi in a second, but I'm pretty sure he said something along the lines of the former Pac-12 schools that are in the Big Ten. They are, I believe, 6-20 in games played outside of the Pacific Coast time zone, 6-20. And I know we said this was going to be an issue when it came to athletics outside of football, but I really wish there was something we could do to not have these teams have to play against these teams in these games. Like the fact that UCLA is playing a random game in East Lansing, Michigan in February. Like, what do we expect was going to happen? Like UCLA's been a pretty good team this year. They had this two-game stretch against two really good teams in Michigan State and against who else they play? Michigan, and they got just curb stomped in these games. They got blown out last night, 82-59. They got blown out by Michigan by 30 over the weekend. So they've fallen now to 17-9. They're 9-6 in the Big Ten. They were playing well. They had won 5 of 6 coming into these games, but this didn't go well. This one got out of hand quickly. There was some things going on in the crowd with a former Michigan State player who had transferred to UCLA in this game that we'll get to in a second. But the big story came from a play late in the game where UCLA is trailing 77-50 with about 4 minutes left in the game. And center Steve Jamerson II goes up and goes for a block on Carson Cooper on a dunk attempt late in the game. It's called a flagrant foul. I'll be honest, I've seen the play a bunch of times. It was a foul. If you want to call it a flagrant to make sure things don't get out of hand, sure. I thought he went for the ball. I thought it was an okay play. If they did not call it as a flagrant, I actually don't think this would have been the hugest deal in the world. He does kind of flex on the guy after the play, which is I think maybe where the flagrant comes in. So, all right, it shows like intent that maybe you did want to make an overly aggressive play that was unnecessary at that point in the game. So I have no problem with them giving him the tech, but I didn't think it was that egregious. What I did not expect was going to happen, while I expected the flagrant, I can understand, was Mick Cronin was so upset. He's the head coach of UCLA. Was so upset about this play, he ejected his own player. He sent bro back to the locker room and said, "No, you're done. Go back to the locker room. That's a stupid play. Get out of here." Just got rid of him. Got rid of him right there on the court. Ejected him from the game. And UCLA went on, of course, to lose this game 82-59. But Mick Cronin himself actually ejected his own guy from a game. Something that I had never seen before. So I want you to hear from Mick Cronin because he explained why he thought the play from Steve Jamerson was unnecessary.
Steve's a good kid. He made a bad decision. But if you want to be a tough guy, you need to do it during the game for a block out for a rebound. So I was thoroughly disappointed. Guy was defenseless in the air. I know Steve was trying to block the shot, but the game's a 25-point game. You don't do that. So
he literally got up and sent him to the locker room right then and there. Just said, "You're done. Get out." This was actually, I think I got some. See, that's why I gotta get my drops ready because this was essentially a Mike Singletary situation. Where I always talk about. I said this on Maggie Perloff show. I know listeners or maybe callers. I don't know. I never know what EJ-isms or diatribes become things that they like or things that they hate. But I've told you guys a ton that Mike Singletary is my favorite toxic NFL coach of all time because he was a madman. Like, he had the infamous sending Vernon Davis to the locker room after he got 2 back-to-back personal foul penalties.
Can't do it.
He said can't do it. He had that crazy press conference where he's like, "I'd rather have 10 guys on the field and just get penalized every play than have someone doing what Vernon Davis was doing out there on the field." And after he subbed him out of the game, he walked over. As the game was being played, he took off his headset, walked over to the bench and said, "You, get your helmet, go into the locker room," and sent him to the locker room. And Vernon Davis says to this day that actually, while it was insane, it was actually a great moment for his career because it kind of gave him a wake-up moment. This was a first-round pick who was becoming a bust. And it really opened his eyes, being like, what am I doing out here? And there he was going to the locker room, being sent away by Mr. Mike Singletary. Again, one of my all-time favorite toxic NFL head coaches.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. Mick Cronin watching Steve Jamerson try to make an aggressive defensive play down 27 points in a blowout late in the game.
Can't do it.
Mick Cronin says can't do it. So Jamerson gets ejected, and Cronin sends his ass to the locker room, says you're done. They get blown out. Again, I've seen the play. It was a foul. If you want to call it a flagrant, fine. And I can see why in that part of the game, you just don't want anything to get escalated. And I actually do agree. The first part of Cronin's thing that was cut off because I couldn't get it clean was him saying that toughness is established early in the game. You don't become a tough guy in the last 4 minutes of the game. You don't toughness is about how you defend, how you fight it through adversity, how you do all these different other things. Toughness is not, we're down 27 points. I'm going to try to make some insane play that is probably dangerous because of where we are at that point in time in the game. I totally agree with that. I mean, someone who played basketball, that's something that I think and if you play basketball, you know what he's talking about. That you'll have guys that want to make some crazy play or do something to show, oh, I'm playing hard, I'm fighting hard, and it's like, no, you're not. This game's already over, and again, you're making a dangerous play. I'm watching it one more time. Yeah, it's not great because the landing is not great. Again, I would show it to you, but I don't want to get in trouble. But the landing is not great because he kind of undercuts him. He's playing purely from behind. Fine with the flagrant foul. He makes a play on the ball. Not a flagrant 2. Definitely not a flagrant 2, but fine with the flagrant. But then he just sends bro to the back. Saying, you're done. Get out. And shout out to Steven Jamerson. It says third here. I think he's the second. Apologies. Yeah, he's the second. This is a typo by Fox Sports. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to out you. I'm just looking at the play again and reading this. But shout out to Steve Jamerson for trying to play hard and trying to finish the game. And shout out to him also for he could have made that a bigger deal on the sidelines. He just went back to the locker room. And I don't know, maybe there was an issue in the locker room, or maybe him and Mick Cronin did get into it. I don't know. But I actually respected that he kept his cool enough to be like, hey, let me not go crazy on my coach right now. Because some guys might have. He didn't. He just took his punishment and walked back to the locker room. But to eject your own player, even Tom Izzo, who is a madman himself, also, even he said, man, that happened, and was that real? Did that see what I just saw? Because I think even he said, I'd never seen that before. Here was Tom Izzo after the game.
I felt for Mick, his team's a lot better than that. And I guess he upgraded that to a flagrant 2, huh? That's the first time I saw a coach do it, but that sounds like Mick, so he'll get that straightened out.
Yeah, that's a funny way to put it. Yeah, he upgraded his own. He reviewed the tape. He saw the foul, and he upgraded his own player's flagrant foul into a flagrant 2. Very funny to laugh and make from Tom Izzo. Shout out to Tom Izzo. I just wonder in terms of the Mick Cronin thing at UCLA. We're just looking at Mick Cronin and what the program has been under him and where they're going. With college coaches, you can be surprised and you'll see some things you'll never expect. Guys go on runs that are just, that's what March is about, right? Guys go on runs, for C and all those different things. That certainly happens. I think it's fair to say this is not going to happen for Mick Cronin at UCLA. When I say this, I mean this idea that UCLA is going to become this national power and that Mick Cronin is going to become, one of the premier coaches in college basketball. He's a very good college basketball coach. He's been highly successful wherever he's gone. I always feel like I look at him as like a very high floor guy. Maybe the ceiling is not that great. He did take him to the Final Four his second year, but high floor. You're never going to be a complete embarrassment with him. Are you ever going to win a championship with him? It seems something is missing. Whether it's recruiting, which now it's kind of taken out of his hands because he doesn't really, recruiting is how much money you have. And we know UCLA has none, which is a bigger issue. But whether it's recruiting, whether it's in-game coaching, it just seems like he always there's a glass ceiling in terms of it seems like success for him. Like he got to UCLA, I think this was going to be the job where it's okay, when he was at Cincinnati, as good a team as those teams weren't threats in March, but we kind of can understand why Cincinnati maybe had a glass ceiling and you couldn't see them winning a title or anything like that. Now you're at UCLA. You would think that this is a program that you should be able to be among the elites. And for a stretch, they were awesome. He won 31 games in 2023. Again, they went to the Final Four. That was kind of a surprise year in the second year. And I know because I was a Gonzaga fan during that time. And they were the number 1 overall seed before losing to Baylor in that national championship game. They gave Gonzaga hell in that Final Four game. That was a game where, Jalen Suggs hit the shot from half court to win the game. One of the greatest shots in the history of March Madness. That was a situation where he did a remarkable job to get them to that point. And they were a Jalen Suggs half-court shot away from going to the national championship game. That's probably the best coaching job of his career still. But what are we doing? They were 23-11 last year. They made the tournament. If I remember correctly, I think they were a first-round exit. This year, they'll probably make the tournament again. I could pull up the bracketology real quick and see where. Let me see where Joey Brackets, Joe Lenardi has them at this point in time. But I would assume that UCLA, they're they're not terrible. They're in a decent spot in the Big Ten overall. 9-6 is not at all a bad place to be at this point in time. It's funny how you search bracketology. There's little small things where you wonder why things are the way they are, and Google definitely plays with algorithms. When you just search bracketology, ESPN's Joe Lenardi bracket doesn't come up. It gives you CBS, no disrespect to CBS, but it gives you CBS and then gives you their women's bracket. It's very weird. But UCLA right now is an 11 seed, according to Joey Brackets, as of, let's see, is this morning? Yes, this is as of this morning. He posted actually just about almost a little less than 2 hours ago. So this is brand new. So this is hot off the press bracket. So they're an 11 seed at large. So they're kind of fighting a little bit. Right now he hasn't managed his last 4 in. So these were ugly losses to Michigan and Michigan State. And I think this is Mick Cronin feeling the heat now for a team that looked like they were destined to definitely be a tournament team. Now it's a little unsure. But again, I want to mention this tweet that I saw because I think it's important in terms of context about why I also think this is they probably need to move on from Mick Cronin, or it's going to be inevitable that he eventually won't be there. John Rothstein tweeted this last night, and I could not believe it when I read it, but it makes sense. Let me pull it up right here if I can find it. He tweets a lot. He was tweeting a lot late into the night. I'm like, these are late tweets for him to be posting. Still can't find it. Where is this tweet? Yeah, can't seem to find it right now. But I'm pretty sure the number was 6-20 for the Oregons, UCLA, Washingtons, and USCs of the world. You're not going to win the conference playing like that. You're not going to win the conference. What he said those teams will never win the Big Ten in basketball. He's right. The Big Ten is too good in basketball. Yeah, here it is. I found it now. The 4 teams from the West Coast that they have, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC, are a combined 6-19 in Big Ten games this season outside the Pacific time zone. None of those 4 programs will ever win a Big Ten regular season title. And John Rothstein is not a hot taker. He's not someone who does that. John Rothstein is awesome, by the way. I think he's one of the best people in the business in terms of his job. Very good mix of, he will give some takes, but he also is a reporter. So I think he's crafted a great career for himself, and I would love to get John Rothstein on the show, actually. I mean, that's going to be almost impossible, but I think he's one of the best doing this. And he's right. Like, this sucks. I hate the way conference realignment has ruined college basketball. I think in college football, we can accept kind of the nonsense because it's like, you know what? It's kind of weird, but Texas playing Georgia is kind of cool. Texas playing Alabama is kind of cool. Like, we get, like, Oregon playing Penn State and Happy Valley is kind of cool. Like, we can kind of explain away some of the things and say, you know what? Is it traditional? No, but we've seen now elements of this that have made this kind of fun. So I think we're able to live with it in college football. In college basketball, in theory, Michigan State and UCLA should be fun. It's not in practice because UCLA having to spend a week away from home, halfway across the country, playing against a team like Michigan or a team like Michigan State not in a back-to-back game in terms of playing night 1 and night 2, but just in terms of like the 2 games you have. That's a gauntlet stretch for a team that's good, but like that's a tough ask for these kids to be away from the school away from home for that extended amount of time in the middle of a season that is already grueling because it's the Big Ten. It sucks. That's not good for college basketball. Like I'm very curious when they move on from Mick Cronin, who's going to take that job. I think that those jobs, the Oregons, Washingtons, USCs, UCLAs of the world, I don't think those are jobs people are clamoring for whenever these coaches that are there currently eventually move on. Eric Musselman is one of the best coaches, I think, in college basketball. I think he's excellent. And I don't think he's got a shot at USC. He's trying. This is the second year. They've improved a ton. They have a shot. They're in Joey Brackett's last 4 buys, which is still a little dicey. You don't want to be there either. You want to be more solidly in there, but it's a tough field this year. There are a lot of really good teams. This is going to be a tough bubble, I feel like, of all the years that I've been watching college basketball. Like, it's a tough bubble this year. Again, UCLA's last 4 in. They're 9-6 in a very good conference. They've had some ugly losses, and they don't have the amount of... They basically haven't beaten any of these top teams in the Big Ten. But again, they're playing all these teams on the road. Like, that's a tough assignment that they're asking them to do. And I just think UCLA being good is great for college basketball, because when Southern California and the high school scene is engaged in UCLA basketball in that way, and you can start getting those kids over there playing for UCLA, it's awesome. It's a great aspect. It's an important program for college basketball. For some reason, we haven't been able to get them to be consistently good. They've had multiple coaches have good success. What's the name? Ben Howland obviously had him in the Final Four. Mick Cronin had him in the Final Four. They've had guys that have been able to. Steve Alford had them, a top team in the country. Like, they've been very good, but all those guys are able to reach a peak and they hit a crater. It feels like the crater is probably coming for Mick Cronin at a certain point in time. So I wonder when this job comes available, because the job last time when it was available, it kind of wasn't all that coveted. Like, Mick Cronin it wasn't like a crazy hire. Like, what, Mick Cronin? He's a good coach. This guy can win 25, 30 games a year at Cincinnati. It's not a terrible program. I think people said, okay, you think maybe you get a little bit of a splash to your name, but this is a career winner. So sure, Mick Cronin. Okay, fine. I don't think they're getting a coach the caliber of Mick Cronin when he gets fired. I'm going to put that right now. Put that day 28, February 18th, 9:56 a.m. Eastern Time. If they move on from Mick Cronin after this season, which I think is possible, because there's other stuff that's been happening. I want to play some sound from this other press conference, because the first part of that was kind of funny. The second part of it was not funny. Mick Cronin comes off like a little bit more of a jerk later on in this press conference. I don't think they're getting a coach to caliber of Mick Cronin in terms of whatever success they've had in the previous stop. I think you're getting more of a mid-major guy, and that may work. Like, getting Golden for Florida from San Francisco was a coup. Now, that's different. Florida was actually willing to pay money for basketball. But still, that was a coup. It ended up being a great hire. And at that time, people were like, what? Really? Ended up being one of the best hires we've had. Now, he had some allegations that came about that ended up being not, I guess, unfounded, or they didn't pursue them, or he was cleared. So I don't know what he's doing off the court. But in terms of basketball, obviously, they won a national title last year. So you have to say that was a Grand Slam hire for a program that's even nowhere close to being back to title contention. So it doesn't mean they won't get a good coach or someone that can actually win there. I'm just saying the resume they'll have will not be Mick Cronin's resume. It will not be somebody that played at a school, coached at a school for years, established himself as a winner, built a program from scratch, like a good program from scratch. When he got to Cincinnati the first year, they won 11 games, built them into a 30-win program by the time he left. You're not getting that. You're not getting that. You're getting somebody from Santa Clara. You're getting somebody from one of these mid-majors. You're not getting these, these lifers that have been waiting for this opportunity at a blue blood. Because I don't think anyone wants this assignment. UCLA's athletic program is notoriously a mess. I don't know why it's still a mess. Like, you think at this point in time, some fairy godfather would come in and say, all right, here's just a ton of money, fix the football and basketball program and leave me alone. Like, St. John's even figured this out. If St. John's can figure this out, why can't UCLA? And I know St. John's doesn't have football, so it's not as much money to spend. But St. John's was a disaster for 20 years. And finally, the Life Water guy was, all right, here's a bunch of money. Please fix the program. And then they fixed it. And now St. John's is good. And now it seems like they're going to be consistently good as long as Rick Pitino is there, which I don't know how long that is. He's a little older, but he seems like a guy he's going to be on that sideline until he physically can't be. Why can't UCLA figure this out? Why are they such a mess in football? Why are they so hapless as a football program? And then in basketball, why can't we have any sustained success as UCLA? You could argue they're the biggest blue blood. That is a fair argument. They have the most national championships. You could absolutely say they're the most prominent college basketball program. And then for, 30 years now? It's been like up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Now we're up and down again with Mick Cronin. And I think, again, with this Big Ten, I wouldn't want that job. I wanted to do this on the show, but I didn't. I don't probably have it because me and Kendall text all the time. I would love to actually put this up if I can. But me and Kendall were talking about how, someone, I think Field of 68, awesome website. Shout out to them. They asked, I think, all the Big Ten coaches, or maybe just all coaches. Yeah, I actually found it. They asked all coaches. I'm actually see if I can actually put this on my screen. That's what I love about doing a live show. You can do stuff like this. Like on the radio, this would sound terrible, and maybe this sounds not great on the podcast, but it's more acceptable on a live stream to actually produce a show while you're doing the show. It feels very weird to me because I'm like, ooh, I want to be more clean. Like I don't want to have all these issues. But on the live stream, it's like, this is much more free flowing, so you can kind of do whatever. All right, so I was able to do this pretty quickly. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys this. And at the time, I thought this was kind of ridiculous. I actually disagreed with the ranking. But, and that's way too big. But let me resize it for you guys so you can see. But what you're seeing there is a ranking. They asked anonymous Big Ten coaches, or actually just anonymous coaches, I'm not mistaken. Let me just read the tweet real quick. They said, we anonymously polled coaches and asked them to rank every job in the Big Ten. So I'm not 100% sure if this is every Big Ten coach who did this anonymous or just coaches, period. So forgive me for not knowing that information. But this is how it ranked. Michigan was ranked 1, Indiana was ranked 2, Michigan State was ranked 3, Illinois was ranked 4, 5th was Purdue, 6th was UCLA. Ohio State was behind them in Oregon. UCLA being 6th in what's the best head coaching job in basketball is outrageous to me. It may be true, it's how these people feel. That's insane. It's UCLA basketball. And you're telling me these coaches would rather coach at Purdue and Illinois? Do you want to twist my arm and tell me that Indiana is still Indiana, and then what Tom Izzo's done at Michigan State has made Michigan State into an absolute power? Oh, okay, sure, you can convince me of that. I actually don't know why Michigan is so high. I assume it's money. I assume just the resources you have at Michigan, and then Michigan being like such a prominent school. Like if you're from the Midwest, that's the school you want to go to. So maybe there's like a recruiting advantage there. I think otherwise, I don't know why. UCLA, I thought this was wrong. Like I saw this a couple weeks ago, and I was like, you cannot tell me UCLA is a better job than Illinois and Purdue. Get out of here. Like I know Matt Painter's done a great job with Purdue, and he's turned them into a powerhouse, but Purdue is Purdue. It's a perennial Sweet 16 kind of team. A good program. Gene Katie, a legend. He really put the program on the map. See, I'm always like wary of those schools where the job, in terms of its history, is all relied upon one man's success. Like Indiana and Purdue, that's all what Bob Knight did and what Gene Katie did, and that's it. That's it. Those schools don't have any history in terms of anything of value prior to when those guys got there. Now for Purdue, they got very fortunate with Matt Painter, where he takes over for Gene Katie, and he was awesome, and they've been able to sustain that success, even though they haven't won a title yet. Indiana has not sustained Bob Knight's success. They fired him, and they've never gotten to consistently the Bob Knight era of basketball, where they're winning national championships, going undefeated, and competing for Final Fours. They've had little spurts, little peaks with various different coaches. Calvin Sampson had a peak. All these guys have had certain peaks where it's like, okay, Steve Alford had a peak. They all like, okay, maybe it's getting in the right direction, but it never quite got over the hump. Actually, I don't know. Steve Alford, he never coached Indiana. What I'm talking about. Whoever coached before Mike Woodson, they've all had. Well, now I'm curious. Is Steve Alford coaching? Did he coach Indiana? These coaches jump around so much. I didn't think he did, but maybe he did. And I'm bugging. I don't know. Now I gotta look this up. Of course, my computer wants to go super slow now, because that's how it goes as you get to the end of the show. So you don't want to cooperate. But like my point though being that these are coaches, these are programs where, you're talking about how good the program is. You say, well, we have a great tradition. I think the tradition you're going at is simply what they did as one man lifting a program to a certain level of success. UCLA, yes, John Wooden did that for UCLA years and years ago, but then other coaches have been able to win national titles, get to Final Fours, have great success still. So I see UCLA at 6 in a Big Ten. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. But I think to John Rothstein's point, 6-19 for all those Pacific time zone schools in the Big Ten. How do you win the Big Ten from that league, where 85% of your games are going to be playing way far away from home? It's a tough pill to swallow, and it's something that they sacrificed with conference realignment. They sacrificed advantages when it comes to basketball, but they're like, listen, the football money is worth it, so they did it. And it was self-preservation because the Pac-12 was a dying league. I've been saying this forever. I just yearn for the day when whatever is the landscape of college sports after conference realignment is done, I yearn for that era of college sports. Because I think what's going to happen is you'll essentially have, like it is in the NFL or in the NBA, where I think you'll just have an East, a West, and then you'll have divisions. So you won't have to worry about some of this stuff. Conferences will just kind of die eventually, all of them, because they'll be all in two conferences. They'll all be in the SEC, they'll all be in the Big Ten. So they'll just become a new league, a North League and a South League, or a West and the East, however they want to do it. But I yearn for that day when that happens. Because I think eventually what's going to end up happening is in college football, you'll have a super league, and you'll have teams that are set up just like the NFL, where you'll have teams in the Southeast Division, teams in the Midwest Division, teams in the Northeast Division, and they'll divvy up playoff spots, divvy up stuff based on whatever they think is fair. I yearn for that day. We're never going to have the Pac-12 be the same again, though the Pac-12 will get some new schools next year. Gonzaga is going to be joining the Pac-12. I think maybe San Diego State joining the Pac-12. There's a bunch of schools that'll be joining next year. So that'll be better. We'll have some version of a Pac-12. It won't really feel that way without UCLA in it and USC in it, but in Oregon. But it's still going to happen. I yearn for the day though when we get past this. I'm tired. I don't like seeing these random, UCLA is playing Michigan State on a Tuesday night. What do you think's going to happen? We know what's going to happen. and it shouldn't. It shouldn't be that much of a foregone conclusion, and it's actually hurting what is one of the premier brands of college basketball. Is actually hurting their ability to have success in the sport, which is ridiculous to me. But Mick Cronin, by the way, ended the press conference with this. Not ended it, but later on in the press conference, he was pressed with, like, not just the idea that he sent his own guy to the locker room because of a flagrant foul late in the game, a la Mike Singletary sending Vernon Davis to the locker room for 2 straight personal foul penalties.
Can't do it.
Mick Cronin also got into it with a reporter. This was not quite as fun, where the reporter asked him, because there was a kid on the team, and he had formerly played for Michigan State. He played for Michigan State. He transferred. He was a 5-star recruit, a big-time recruit for them, and he transferred, and now he plays for UCLA. Xavier Booker. He's one of their centers. And the fans were getting after him, because this is how it works, right? Actually, I had a caller on WFAN, just real quickly. A caller called in and was like, he was at the game, at the St. John's game against Providence, when you had the flagrant foul, you had the fight, and essentially they were like, listen, Bryce Hopkins, the St. John's star, who used to play at Providence, like, the crowd was basically chanting F you at this kid the whole game. And they're jeering him the whole game. Like, it was very bizarre to see at the college level. I'm not used to seeing that. And I say, well, I think this is going to become more prevalent, because we're in a situation now where, like in the NBA, or in Major League Baseball, when a player can leave a place where they actually maybe had some staying power and they became a part of the community, you actually have fans that actually get PO'd when they leave. They're like, yo, you betrayed us. You said you were going to win a title here. You didn't fulfill your promise, or whatever, right? Like before with college, because the transfer portal wasn't as prevalent, or there really wasn't one. It didn't exist. there wasn't a hard feeling for a guy that transferred from a school and went to another school. That didn't really exist. Like, the guys that transferred because they were getting, like, no playing time, or they got hurt, or the coach told them to leave. Like, it was not like a thing you held over their head. It was rare you even played those teams, because sometimes there were rules where you couldn't transfer to a school that was on their schedule or in their conference. So it was rare you even had this. Like, this kid back in the day couldn't even transfer to UCLA. Michigan State probably would have put a provision where if you're going to transfer, you can't transfer within the conference. So I told the call, I was like, this is something that I think could be more prevalent, where kids are going to transfer from places where people had high hopes for them, and for whatever reason, they're going to leave, and they're going to have to go and play in these schools, and it's going to be nasty. It's going to be a tough environment, and it was with Bryce Hopkins at Providence over the weekend, and it ended in a fight, and apparently it was for Xavier Booker, who was getting jeered by the fans. This was a question that Mick Cronin was asked about the fans getting after Booker, and Mick Cronin didn't like it.
What was your thought to the student section chanting Booker's name?
I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section.
I just meant the overall the way that you
I would like to give you a kudos for the worst question I've ever been asked.
Did you like
You should take it.
the preparation of the...
You really think I care about the other team's
No, I don't
section?
think you care about the other
Are you
teams.
raising your voice at me?
No, I'm just...
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Come on, dude.
No reason.
Come on. Yes, you are. Everybody's standing here listening to you. Everybody. This is on camera. They can hear you. I answered the question. I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section. I coach UCLA. I don't care about Michigan State students. I mean, who cares?
Yeah, this is a dead man walking. I mean, come on. That was a completely ridiculous exchange. The question, I don't think is that ridiculous. He's hot. He lost. They got blown out. It's a tough stretch. They're fighting for their lives for the NCAA tournament. I think we got to give coaches some grace in terms of dealing with questions. It's not the easiest thing in the world, though it is part of their job, and you got to be a pro, and Mick Cronin was not being a pro there at all. But I think we can understand from that standpoint, okay, you're frustrated. I get it. So then you go to, well, that's the worst question I've ever heard. It's like, I've been to conference media days. I've actually interviewed Mick Cronin. Shout out to Mick Cronin. I've interviewed him, and he was awesome to me, and he was a nice guy, and we had a fun 55-minute chat, maybe even less, who knows. Just ask him questions about the season when he was at Cincinnati. Definitely didn't ask, I know that I don't know if he had me ranked as the worst question, but now I know for a fact I no longer would have held that title, because whoever this guy was in the press conference for this one, or the gaggle for this one, he now usurped me for worst question. So I guess thanks to Mick Cronin for that. If I actually had asked him the worst question, I asked him like what superhero he'd want to recruit to his team. He probably thought that was a stupid question now in hindsight. But that's a long story for another day. But yeah, I mean that's just a ridiculous exchange. So first, like, I don't give a rat's ass what the student section said about my player. Okay, colorful, but actually a good answer. If you're a reporter, you love that answer. Then it's, you asked the stupidest question I've ever heard. Okay, I don't think that's the stupidest question. This was a hostile environment. It was a hostile environment for your player. Booker only scored 2 points and had 2 rebounds in 25 minutes, so he didn't really perform that well. I think that it is fair to ask, did this have any impact on his play or whatever? Maybe the question could have been framed in that way, but to bring up the topic of it as part of the game, I don't think that that's something that was ridiculous at all. And most people wouldn't. And then to get the, are you raising your voice at me, when the guy is trying to, like, clearly trying to, like, clarify and just diffuse because he saw Mick Cronin was upset. Now you're saying, are you raising your voice at me like I'm your kid? I'm telling you, man, like, I went to journalism school, so in theory I am a trained journalist and a reporter, and if I had to do that, I could. The way some of these people talk to folks, and it always happens with college coaches, because they run with impunity, because they rule their programs with iron fists. They seem to be the ones that are most not adult trained in terms of, like, how you talk to people. Because you told any random man on the street when they're simply trying to talk to you, are you raising your voice at me? That could be a problem. That would be a problem for me. I would have a problem with Mick Cronin talking to me like he's my dad. Are you raising your voice at me? Because I'm trying to simply clarify a question that you didn't like. I'm actually trying to diffuse the situation. Now you're saying you're raising your voice at me. And he's like, well, everyone else could see that you're raising your voice at me, when he obviously was not. In the way he's describing, as if he's trying to make this confrontation, he was not raising his voice in a confrontational way. I understand being competitive. I understand hating to lose. I understand that you're hot in that moment. Mick Cronin, the next time he steps in front of a microphone, he better, not even if, he better step in front of a microphone and be like, I treated that guy wrong. That wasn't right. I apologize. That was not professional. That was not becoming of UCLA basketball for me to do that. That's ridiculous. Are you raising your voice at me? Who you? Who are you talking to? That's the thing in the street that, and something your mama would say too. But you can say that also to anybody. When someone says something like that, you say, who are you talking to? Because that's what I would have said. If you would have said you raised your voice, I'd say, who are you talking to? Who you talking? I know you ain't talking to me. Am I raising your voice? Get the F out of here. Are you raising your voice at me? I'm not one of your players. I remember we had a discussion on Maggie Perloff's show. And I mentioned how, it's something that I went back and forth about. It's something I saw online about how, I forgot what it was. Oh, it was Deion Sanders. Because, there was a whole deal about, I don't know if this was it, but there was something else regarding a coach. I know he had this example, too, where he wasn't going to answer people responding to him as Deion. He wanted them just to say Coach Prime or Coach. And a journalism 101 thing that I learned in journalism school, and what is a reality is I'm sorry, you are a coach, but I'm not one of your players, and it's not disrespectful to refer to you as your name. You're not. It's not like doctor, where you get a certain degree, you earn a certain status through licensing, through education, through all these different things. You don't earn that when you become a coach. Anybody can become a coach. Not anybody can become a doctor. It's simple. Not anybody can become a doctor. So me and Maggie were going back and forth about when it comes to coach, or just saying their name, or when it comes to talking to an owner. You'll hear a lot on the Fan. I'm being real. Mr. Mara. I would never call John Mara Mr. Mara. I'm not a Giant employee. So I don't need to refer to him in that way. I have my job, he has his job. He's John Mara to me. It's not disrespectful to not refer to them as coach or Mr. or whatever. I'm not saying hey jerk or hey a-hole. No, and that's not okay. Or say something else or give them a nickname that they don't want or anything. You don't call them out of their name, you be respectful. But I remember having that back and forth, and and it was oh, well, is that isn't it just showing a level of respect or whatever? I'm I mean, yeah, sure. They're just not owed that. My thing is, you want to do that, totally fine. You can do that, and I won't judge you for it. I don't care. I'm just saying, don't tell me how I address you. And I remember I read that, or we were taught that, and I was like, you know what, that makes sense. Hey, why would I call somebody coach if they're not my coach? That doesn't, especially since I played basketball. So I think about oh yeah, of course, duh. Why would I call someone a coach that's not my coach? That doesn't make any sense. If I'm working as an equal to them, because you are equals when you're doing this media player or media coach relationship. Even media owner, still same, you're equals. So there isn't a hierarchy where I have to respect you. They're not the Pope. It's not, it's not a king. It's not His Highness or Her Highness. We don't do that. College coaches seem to not understand that sometimes, and they want to try to bully people around. So him telling a grown-ass man, why are you raising your voice at me, when he's simply trying to diffuse the situation, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And again, it speaks to, I think, what is a desperate situation at UCLA that Mick Cronin knows he can't get out of. This is not going to end well, because the situation doesn't allow it to end well, where you're a team and you're playing a random Tuesday night in freezing East Lansing after having your head cracked in by Michigan just a couple of nights ago. They were never going to win this game. And that's going to be a problem that UCLA job moving forward as long as they're in the Big Ten. That's going to do it for this episode of 40 Days and 40 Nights. I want to appreciate you guys so much for checking me out. Of course, like I say always, all these episodes get podcasted wherever you get your podcasts. Just search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to the folks watching me live on YouTube, New Generation Media, on X, EJ_Stewart, and on Instagram, Action EJ. If you could do me a favor, if you could subscribe to the channel You can follow me on social media. All those things help. And if you can comment in the comment section, if you can give me a thumbs up and like this video, again, all those things help the program, help the channel, and help me individually, and it's just great. So if you can do that, I would greatly appreciate it. And that's the music. Thank you guys again. I'll be back at 6 p.m. with more 40 Days and 40 Nights. We'll also have me live on WFAN at midnight later tonight. So this is going to be a little bit of a crazy stretch, but we're going to get through it. It's going to be fun. Okay, thank you guys for rocking with me this morning. I'll see you guys at 6 p.m. Later.